Not every story of a Jedi is about a powerful hero destined to be the strongest to save the world from a great evil. Sometimes the biggest heroes are the ones who do the small things that can create ripples set to change the tides of fate. One such man is Kanan Jarrus, a Jedi Knight who tried to make the little things count and fought against the odds even when it cost him everything. This is the story of a Jedi whose actions sparked hope within the galaxy, causing a chain reaction that ultimately led to a successful rebellion and the downfall of the Empire. Chapter 1. Early Life and Training. Before he was the rogue and rebel Kanan Jarrus, the man who helped spark the revolution was a young boy named Caleb Dume. He was born during the twilight of the Galactic Republic, coming into the world not too long before the fires of the Clone Wars began to consume the galaxy. Like many children gifted with the Force, the Jedi Order took him from his family at a tender age, leaving him with no memories of his parents or his home world. To Caleb, the Jedi Temple on Coruscant was the only home he ever knew, and the Order was the only family he ever had. He was never a chosen one or a prodigy whose name whispered of destiny, for he was viewed as a rather average student. Despite his lack of raw, overwhelming power, Caleb possessed a diligent spirit that allowed him to keep pace with his peers. He learned the ways of the Force under legendary figures like Grandmaster Yoda. Even as a small boy, he took the lesson to heart that, according to Yoda, there was no such thing as trying, only doing or not doing. The path of a Jedi led him to the frozen caves of Ilum, where he participated in the ancient tradition of the Gathering. Guided by the Force, he claimed his first Kyber crystal and sought the counsel of the ancient droid professor Huyang to construct his weapon. Caleb's lightsaber was a strange tool, featuring unique controls for blade length and power settings that puzzled even the droid who had seen 1,000 generations of Jedi blades. It was a sign that Caleb, though a follower of tradition, possessed a practical mind. Fate eventually brought him to the side of Master Depa Billaba, a wise and powerful member of the Jedi High Council. Their first encounter occurred under different circumstances as Caleb watched the Broken Master recover in a Bacta tank after a devastating defeat at the hands of General Grievous. Not too long after, he heard all the rumors. Caleb's friends told him that Billaba was damaged goods, having lost to 90% of her men in the devastating defeat to Grievous. Despite the warnings, Dume only saw Billaba as a mentor who understood her failures and shortcomings, accepting them with grace. Then, when a terrorist attack struck the heart of their world, Caleb did not hesitate to stand by her side and fight with bravery. This display of courage sealed their bond, and Billaba chose the young boy as her Padawan, ignoring the jealous warnings of Caleb's friends, who warned him that he was never going to be safe under his new master. Chapter 2. The Clone Wars. The Clone Wars was a galaxy-wide conflict that began on 22 BBY, even before Caleb Dume completed his initiate trials. Its roots could be traced to the conflict on Naboo on 32 BBY, when the Trade Federation invaded the planet, causing the Jedi to act. But there were other systems and planets that had grown tired of the bureaucracy, politicking, and corruption happening within the Galactic Senate. In short, not everyone was happy about what was happening in the Republic. The conflicts caused a rift between several systems that left the Republic to form the Confederacy of Independent Systems, otherwise known as the Separatists. With the Separatists forming their own droid army to wage war against the Jedi and the Republic, but the secretive Sith Order had been manipulating the events for decades, influencing Jedi Master Sifo Dyas to commission the creation of a clone army based on bounty hunter Jango Fett to serve as the Republic's soldiers. The players were ready, and the first stage was Geonosis, where the Clone Wars officially started. The Jedi Order lost around 200 of their own during the Battle of Geonosis, severely weakening their numbers and forcing them to fast-track the training of the Padawans. Children as young as 12 years old were on the field with their masters to earn experience in the middle of a war. Caleb Dume was one of them, even if he was far too young to be facing the horrors of war. But he was not the only young Padawan actively earning experience during the Clone Wars. Ahsoka Tano, who was only a few years older than Caleb, was Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. As young as she was, she already showed exceptional talent and skill under Anakin's tutelage, even facing ferocious enemies in many of their different skirmishes. Her training, however, was more advanced, as Anakin believed she needed to be ready for whatever hardship was coming her way. At one point during the war, Anakin conducted a training test for Ahsoka in the Jedi Temple. Caleb and Depa were one of the few to witness it. Tano passed the test with flying colors, showing advanced skills for someone her age. Dume, who was still from her level, was left amazed by what he saw, not realizing he and Ahsoka would eventually work together in the far future. Well, the General has been making additions to his collection for several years now, and if you're anything like me, you've probably imagined what it could be like to own a saber yourself. So that's why I started my own store called Stickman Sabers, with a singular goal in mind. Make sabers that look amazing, being inspired by iconic designs, but specifically built to actually duel with. No worrying about babying them, just pick them up and go ham. They're equipped with state-of-the-art pixel technology, giving off an incredibly bright light that will light up the darkest rooms out there. And obviously have that iconic hum, just feels right the moment you switch it on. And for a limited time, if you pick a collector's saber up, you'll also get 2 combat sabers for free. So, if you ever thought about starting your own collection, this is a pretty good place to start. Links in the description, and now, let's get back to the video. Meanwhile, Dume had to go through his own training under Balaba. Not too long after becoming a master and teacher duo, they went to Cardoa for Dume's first mission. There, they met with Commander Gray and the other officers of Balaba's new command. Unbeknownst to them, they were observed by an enemy probe droid that reported their movements for an ambush. The Separatist ambush essentially forced them on the defensive. Left with no choice, Balaba left her company to look for the enemy ship to even the odds. Dume was left with the clones. Young as he was, he disobeyed a clone's order and was left wounded from a blaster shot. He survived together with the company as the enemy was forced to withdraw after Balaba found their ship. Dume was placed in a back-to-tank for recovery after his first successful battle as a Padawan. Not too long after, the battalion received a new mission, to go to Megiddo, a planet controlled by the Separatists. He made a full recovery from his blaster wounds and proceeded to join his master to take part in what became the Third Battle of Megiddo. There, they were confronted by the forces led by General Grievous and Colonel Coburn Sear. The last time Balaba faced Grievous in battle was a disaster as she lost most of her men. This time, however, it was a different outcome. The Jedi Master held her own against the cyborg general. Meanwhile, Dume faced Sear, who fought skillfully with an electro sword and a flamethrower. The Padawan managed to beat Sear, acknowledging the colonel as the first kill in his life. He and the other clone officers then rendezvoused to rescue Balaba from Grievous, denying the cyborg general a kill. Grievous ordered his forces to retreat, giving Balaba and Dume a victory and avenging the Jedi Master's previous loss. Chapter 3. Order 66. Following their victory on Megiddo, 14-year-old Padawan Caleb Dume and his master Depa Balaba were deployed to Kalar. As the Clone War neared its conclusion, Balaba led Republic forces to a swift victory over General Cleave. During a brief respite under the stars, Balaba, one of the few masters of the defensive lightsaber Form 3, Ceresu, mentored Caleb. While Caleb felt at peace as he thought he had already found his place in the galaxy, Balaba warned him never to grow too attached to the present, as war could shift the galaxy in an instant. While Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker secured victories on Coruscant and Utapau, leading to the deaths of Count Dooku and General Grievous, Kalar fell under a renewed Separatist siege. Balaba and Dume joined forces with Clone Force 99, a group of elite, genetically modified troopers known as the Bad Batch. Together, they successfully repelled the droid army. However, the triumph turned to tragedy when Chancellor Palpatine executed Order 66. This secret protocol, triggered via inhibitor chips, compelled the clones to view the Jedi as traitors. Suddenly, Commander Gray and his battalion turned their blasters on Balaba. Realizing the scale of the betrayal, Balaba commanded Caleb to flee, sacrificing her life to hold off the clones and buy him time to escape. A devastated Caleb retreated to the forest, where he was pursued by the Bad Batch. Because of their unique genetic mutations, most members of Clone Force 99 were unaffected by the inhibitor chips. However, the sniper Crosshair felt the compulsion to obey the order, while Sergeant Hunter remained skeptical. Hunter eventually cornered Caleb at the edge of a deep gorge. Though Caleb was terrified and distrustful of all clones, Hunter attempted to protect the boy. In a desperate leap, Caleb cleared the chasm and vanished into the wilderness. To save the young Jedi from further pursuit, Hunter reported back to his squad that the Padawan had been shot and killed in the fall. Caleb Dume survived, escaping into the shadows as the survivor of a massacre that ended the Jedi Order. Chapter 4. Surviving the Empire. Despite Hunter's best efforts to lie about what happened to Caleb Dume, Crosshair knew the boy was still alive. He ordered the clones on Kalar to hunt the Padawan down. Caleb, meanwhile, had to evade the clones to the best of his abilities, using the cover of night to move from one place to another without staying on one spot too long. Knowing that sleep and rest would mean leaving himself vulnerable, Dume rested with one eye open. He did not sleep at all, opting to stay on the move to ensure the patrolling clones would never spot him. Out of desperation, he ate from dumpsters as he had no credits for food. But luck would have it that he ran into Janice Casimir, a Kaleran scoundrel who took on odd and illegal jobs. Casimir tossed Dume some food out of pity, but before the Kaleran could walk away, the desperate Padawan begged for a safe spot to sleep. Casimir gave in and allowed Caleb to sleep in the spare bunk of his ship, the Casimiri. He even gave Dume new clothes because he didn't want the boy to run around in Jedi robes. Confused about the entire situation, Caleb asked Casimir what he should do, to which the scoundrel replied that he should lie, cheat, and steal to survive. But before Dume could even flirt with the idea of becoming a scoundrel himself, he learned of the emergency signal to recall all Jedi to the temple. Unbeknownst to him, this was a trap set by Palpatine, who had just proclaimed himself Emperor of the Reformed Galactic Empire. When Casimir denied Dume's request to take him back to Coruscant, the boy stole the Casimiri and jumped into lightspeed to Coruscant. But while he was in hyperspace, he received Obi-Wan Kenobi's message instructing all Jedi to go into hiding from the Empire. Dume found an opening to escape back to Kalar, where he found Casimir waiting for him. While the scoundrel didn't want anything to do with the boy, Dume followed him around as he had no other choice and no one else to trust. He shadowed Casimir and his group, often observing them from afar. But in the middle of trying to assist Casimir in one of his affairs, Dume ruined a negotiation with a potential client. Casimir then forced Dume to assume their role as the negotiator, telling him to abandon his Jedi persona, prompting Dume to cut his Padawan braid, hide his lightsaber, and adopt a smuggler's appearance. But during a droid heist, Casimir betrayed Dume to save himself. The scoundrel, upon learning that the boy was going to be executed, had a change of heart. He returned to rescue Dume from certain death and welcomed him into his crew. Forming a partnership, Dume learned thieving while evading clones Gray and Styles, the same clone officers he once worked with during the Clone Wars. However, the clones were insistent on capturing the Padawan. On board a clone cruiser, they eventually arrested and captured Dume, who tried to convince them that Palpatine was the one who betrayed the Jedi. But the inhibitor chip was far too strong that the boy was unable to convince them to buy the truth. With no other choice, Dume opened an airlock to escape, trusting in the Force one last time. He survived thanks to Casimir, who rescued him from the vacuum of space. Gray, meanwhile, realized that Order 66 was a mistake, breaking through the inhibitor chip's conditioning. He sabotaged the cruiser's shields, allowing Dume and his allies to destroy the ship. Back on Kalar, Dume insisted on parting ways with Casimir to avoid the pain of future attachments. He retrieved his Jedi gear and departed for Moraga, adopting the alias Kanan Jarrus. For years, he hid his Force sensitivity, working odd jobs as a pilot and bounty hunter while drifting between planets to evade the Empire. He eventually settled on Gorse, finding work with Okadiah Garson as a freighter pilot hauling chemicals, successfully maintaining a low profile for a long time. Chapter 5. Becoming a Spectre. Now working alone, Kanan crossed paths with Count Vidian on the Gorse system during one of his jobs. However, it was also during this time that he met the Twi'lek Hera Syndulla after he found himself involved in a street brawl. Intrigued by Hera, Kanan learned from her that she was there to investigate Vidian, who had ties with the Empire. Though reluctant, Kanan assisted Hera as they eventually learned that Vidian planned on bombing the Gorse system's moon to increase mining efficiency. Piloting a ship called the Expedient, Jarrus returned to the Gorse system with Hera, where they engaged with the Empire and Vidian's flagship, the Forager. As Kanan fought the cybernetic Vidian in battle, the Empire realized the Count's madness and ordered the destruction of the Forager's tower. The Forager crumbled, forcing Jarrus to embrace his past, openly using the Force to shield Syndulla from debris. They escaped in a life pod, landing safely on Gorse. After forging an alibi to cover his tracks, Kanan Jarrus made a choice that would shape the rebellion. He accepted Syndulla's offer to join the crew of the Ghost, together with her astromech droid C-110P, otherwise known as Chopper. At that time, however, the crew was only composed of Jarrus, Syndulla, and Chopper. Operating a modified VCX-100 light freighter known as the Ghost, they needed new members for their motley crew of rebels. But Kanan found and recruited the Lasat warrior Garzeb Aurelios, once a proud member of Lasan's honor guard. convincing him to rebel against the Empire after destroying his homeworld. Then, not too long after, the crew met the Mandalorian teenager Sabine Wren, who was also convinced to join the Spectres out of her disdain for the Empire. The crew moved to the Outer Rim planet Lothal, where the Empire's presence was strong yet not entirely firm. They mostly operated by sabotaging the Empire's small-scale activities within the system, frustrating the Imperials. At that time, it seemed as if they were a complete band of rebels, with Jarrus and Syndulla as their leaders. However, there was one more member missing from their crew, and he was the one who had the most profound effect on Kanan's life as a Jedi. Chapter 6. Taking on an Apprentice. During a covert operation within Lothal's capital city intended to appropriate Imperial supplies, Kanan Jarrus sensed a ripple in the Force. The source was a 14-year-old street orphan named Ezra Bridger. Despite the distraction, Jarrus proceeded with the mission, intercepting Imperial speeders laden with crates. However, the operation became complicated when Bridger brazenly hijacked one of the speeders. Forced to pursue the thief to secure the objective, Jarrus eventually cornered the boy. Rather than reclaiming the cargo with violence, Jarrus offered Bridger a choice: surrender the crate and escape the pursuing Imperial forces aboard the Ghost. Jarrus watched closely as the boy unknowingly utilized the Force to leap from his speeder into the hovering starship, crate in tow. It was right then and there that Kanan realized this was the boy the Force wanted him to find. Once the Ghost jumped to hyperspace, evading the pursuing TIE fighters, the crew met with the crime lord Secatro Vizago. In exchange for the supplies, Vizago provided credits and intelligence regarding a group of Wookiees enslaved by the Empire. During the downtime, the astromech droid Chopper alerted Jarrus to an intruder in his quarters. Jarrus found Bridger holding his lightsaber. Though he demanded the weapon's return, Jarrus allowed the boy to steal a Jedi holocron, initiating a silent test of the boy's potential. After all, only one strong in the Force could open a holocron. The crew tracked the Wookiees to a Gozanti-class cruiser, but the rescue attempt proved to be a trap laid by ISB agent Kallus. In the ensuing chaos, the crew was forced to retreat, leaving a captured Bridger behind on the Imperial Lawbringer. A contentious debate arose among the crew regarding a rescue mission. Jarrus cast the deciding vote, choosing to return for the boy. They found Bridger already escaping through the Star Destroyer's ventilation system, bearing news that the Wookiees had been moved to the spice mines of Kessel. The Ghost arrived at Kessel, where the crew engaged stormtroopers to liberate the Wookiee prisoners. When Agent Kallus and his forces cornered the rebels, Jarrus made a critical decision. He ignited his lightsaber, publicly revealing his identity as a Jedi survivor to draw fire and buy time for the others. The diversion worked. The crew, along with the liberated Wookiees, escaped via cargo container. Back on Lothal, Bridger stole Jarrus' lightsaber once more. Before departing, however, the boy returned the holocron he had managed to open. Jarrus, confirming the boy's sensitivity to the Force, offered him an ultimatum: keep the lightsaber as a useless relic and remain a thief, or return it and join the crew as a Padawan. Awaiting the decision on the Ghost, Jarrus listened to the holocron's recording of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Bridger appeared, returned the weapon, and Jarrus formally took him as an apprentice. Later, facing financial difficulties, the rebels targeted a shipment of illegal T-7 ion disruptor rifles on Gerrel. They secured the weapons and fled, unknowingly carrying the two droids, who were on a mission for Bail Organa. The attempt to sell the disruptors to Vizago on Lothal was interrupted by Agent Kallus, supported by ATDP walkers. A violent skirmish ensued, with Jarrus going up against the walkers. Meanwhile, Aurelios found himself outmatched by Kallus. Before the ISB agent could deliver a killing blow, Bridger instinctively used the Force to push Kallus back, saving his teammate. Following the battle, Jarrus returned the droids to Bail Organa, who paid the rebels handsomely without revealing his true identity. But while the Spectres had collected victory after victory, Jarrus still struggled with his confidence as a teacher. He knew the basics of the Force and lightsaber combat, but he could never get over the fact that he was not a true Jedi. Kanan never completed his Padawan training, as he was never knighted before Order 66 destroyed the Jedi. Moreover, he realized he did not have the patience to deal with Ezra's lack of discipline. His self-doubts only deepened when he intercepted a transmission claiming Jedi Master Luminara Unduli was alive and imprisoned in the Stygian system. Believing a true master could better train Bridger, Jarrus organized a mission to infiltrate the Spire. Jarrus and Bridger reached a detention block. They entered the cell only to find a horrifying truth. Luminara was long dead, her remains used as a beacon to lure surviving Jedi. The trap was laid by the Grand Inquisitor. He was the leader of the Inquisitorius, a group of Force-sensitive individuals corrupted to the dark side to serve as the Empire's hunting dogs to track down any surviving Jedi. The Grand Inquisitor emerged, revealing the trap. Jarrus engaged the Jedi Hunter in a duel but found himself outmatched, taunted by the Inquisitor for his lack of skill. The rebels barely managed to retreat despite the Grand Inquisitor's best efforts to close in on them. Safe in hyperspace, Bridger offered to release Jarrus from the obligation of training him. Jarrus refused. Recalling the teachings of the Jedi Order, he resolved to stop doubting his own abilities. He vowed to train Bridger properly, no longer looking for a replacement, but accepting his role as the boy's master and believing this was the will of the Force guiding him toward his true calling. Chapter 7. Training Ezra between missions. Kanan Jarrus saw everything changing before his very eyes when he was on Collar a decade and a half ago. He never wanted to return to the planet ever again, but was forced to do so when Fulcrum, their secret informant, told them to go to that planet to retrieve supplies for the Tarkin Town refugees. Jarrus and Chopper successfully tracked down the missing supplies from the thieves responsible for stealing them. However, bothered by memories of the past on this planet, Kanan was wounded in the fight, eventually collapsing from blood loss. The crew rushed to put him in a Bacta tank. When Imperial forces surrounded the building, Kanan awoke, shattered the tank with the Force, and eliminated the troopers. While the crew prepared to leave, Kanan and Ezra Bridger stayed behind after receiving a coded message from Kanan's old friend, Morphizo. They entrusted Morphizo's family to Governor Key for protection and learned the Empire had imprisoned Morphizo on Lan. Flying the escape to Lan, Ezra provided a distraction while Kanan infiltrated the Imperial outpost. Inside, he located Morphizo but was confronted by Vice Admiral Sloane. The two have encountered each other in the past when Sloane was still a captain stationed on Gorse. However, Sloane was curious enough to investigate Kanan's history, learning that his entire identity had been a fabrication. She learned that he was, in fact, a Jedi. Arresting Morphizo was simply a trap meant to lure him. Kanan, however, used the Force to disable Sloane and rescue his old friend to reunite him with his family on Collar. Not too long after, Kanan and Ezra returned to Lothal during Empire Day, the anniversary of the Republic's reformation into the Empire. During that time, he was training Bridger to use the Force to influence animals. Their session was cut short when they visited Old Joe's pit stop and learned the Empire was hunting a Rodian named Sibo. Following a disruptive broadcast by Senator Travis, the Spectre sabotaged the Imperial celebration by detonating a TIE fighter. In the chaos, Bridger led the team to his abandoned childhood home, where they found Sibo and uncovered the truth about the boy's parents. They learned that Sibo never meant to betray Ezra's parents when he gave them up to the Empire long ago, prompting Bridger to forgive Sibo. Shortly after, the rebels smuggled him off-world using a stolen troop transport. Although they boarded the Ghost, the Grand Inquisitor tracked them by following the Phantom, the Ghost's auxiliary shuttle. Knowing that the Inquisitor was in pursuit, Jarrus devised a trap, detaching the shuttle in hyperspace to lure their pursuer to Fort Anaxes. There, Jarrus instructed Bridger to connect with the Phrynox, wild animals local to that area. When the Inquisitor arrived, Jarrus was quickly knocked unconscious. In a moment of desperation, Bridger tapped into the dark side to command a giant Phrynox using the Jedi Hunter. Recovering just in time, Jarrus rescued his apprentice and destroyed the Imperial shuttle. Safely away, Jarrus apologized for his shortcomings as a master, warned by Bridger's dangerous connection to the dark side. Seeking guidance, Jarrus consulted his holocron and located a Jedi temple on Lothal. Inside, he waited anxiously while Bridger faced trials alone. During this separation, Jarrus communed with Yoda, confessing his insecurities about training a Padawan. His fears were put to rest when Bridger returned with a Kyber crystal. Over the next few weeks, Jarrus donated parts from his own supplies to help Bridger construct a lightsaber. With the crew assembled, he watched with pride as his apprentice ignited the weapon. Chapter 8. Defeating the Grand Inquisitor. Following a mission, Kanan Jarrus, Sabine Wren, and Ezra Bridger returned to the Ghost, where Hera Syndulla watched Senator Gal Travis publicly pledge loyalty to the Empire on the HoloNet. Inspired to counter this propaganda, Jarrus proposed hijacking Lothal's Imperial Communications Center to broadcast a message of hope. During reconnaissance, Jarrus and Wren formulated a plan, unaware that a probe droid had alerted Grand Moff Wilhuff Tarkin to their location. Despite Bridger's apprehension, Jarrus remained resolute, finally understanding the lesson of sacrifice his master Depa Billaba had taught him years prior. As the crew infiltrated the tower, Imperial reinforcements arrived. Realizing the trap, Jarrus ordered Syndulla to prepare for an immediate extraction at the summit. When Agent Kallus and the Grand Inquisitor cornered them, Jarrus made the ultimate choice to ensure his crew's survival. He commanded Ezra to flee, locking the blast doors to separate his apprentice from the danger. Wielding his lightsaber, Kanan destroyed the control panel and engaged the Pau'an Darksider. Overwhelmed and unable to reach the Phantom, he ordered Syndulla to depart without him. As sunrise broke, the Jedi Padawan looked on in defiance while Tarkin ordered the tower's destruction to cut the rebels' broadcast short. Imprisoned aboard the Star Destroyer Sovereign, Kanan endured brutal interrogation at the hands of the Inquisitor. The Darksiders sought the location of other rebel cells and the identity of Fulcrum, but Jarrus revealed nothing. Switching tactics, the Inquisitor tormented the former Jedi with memories of Order 66, mocking Billaba's death and Jarrus' survival. When forced to recount his master's final command to run, Jarrus faced his lingering guilt. The Inquisitor ignited Jarrus' confiscated lightsaber, taunting him that he was right to be afraid, for he would fail his new family just as he had failed his old master. Ezra and the rest decided to rescue Kanan despite the Jedi's insistence on escaping without him. Bridger eventually infiltrated the detention block, freeing his master. The apprentice led them to the ship's reactor core, where the Inquisitor waited. Kanan, wielding Bridger's unique lightsaber, fought alongside his apprentice, who managed to snatch Jarrus' weapon from the Inquisitor. However, the youth was outmatched, with the Inquisitor knocking Bridger from the walkway, causing him to drop the saber and plummet from sight. Kanan was distraught as he thought Ezra had died right then and there. He believed he had lost everything. In that moment, however, he found a moment of absolute clarity. Kanan released his fear and reconnected with the Force. "You were right. I was a coward, but now I know there's something stronger than fear. Far stronger. The Force." Kanan Jarrus to the Grand Inquisitor. Wielding both his and his apprentice's lightsaber, he drove the Inquisitor back, shattering the Darksider's weapon and damaging the reactor core. Defeated and hanging from the ledge, the Inquisitor warned that some fates were worse than death before letting go, falling into the exploding chasm. Soon after the Grand Inquisitor's demise, Kanan was relieved to find Ezra alive. They escaped together using the Inquisitor's TIE fighter, clearing a path for the rebels. Celebrating their success as they had just defeated their most fearsome enemy yet, the crew reunited with Bail Organa in hyperspace. Right then and there, Fulcrum appeared, revealing herself as Ahsoka Tano, marking this rescue as a pivotal early victory in the Galactic Civil War. Chapter 9. Working with Phoenix Cell. Not too long after defeating the Grand Inquisitor and meeting the other rebels, the Spectres joined the Phoenix Cell, a larger group of rebels commanded by Jun Sato. However, Kanan Jarrus was unsure of the Spectres' decision to join the bigger rebellion. His past experiences during the Clone Wars had left him traumatized about working with the military. As he pondered about their latest decision, he learned from Minister Tua of Lothal that she was willing to defect and offer Imperial secrets in exchange for her safe passage off the planet. Kanan discussed this with the crew as they all agreed on rescuing Tua. However, soon after, he told Hera he was unsure about working with the military, suggesting the Spectres to leave the rebellion to resume their usual small-scale activities. The crew returned to Lothal in a civilian commuter to extract Minister Maketh Tua, hoping to secure her defection. But the extraction turned fatal when Tua's shuttle exploded upon boarding. It was a sabotage arranged by Agent Kallus to frame the rebels for her assassination. With their escape craft disabled, the crew retreated to Bridger's abandoned home before moving to infiltrate the Imperial Armory complex. Inside the complex, the rebels encountered Darth Vader, the powerful Sith Lord the Grand Inquisitor was too afraid to confront following his loss to the Spectres. Vader was unlike any other opponent that Kanan and Ezra had faced in their lives. The Sith Lord toyed with the duo, easily overwhelmed them in a duel. Facing certain defeat, the duo decided to retreat by stealing an Imperial shuttle. However, the retreat was a calculation by Vader, who had ordered a homing beacon placed on the craft to track them to the rebel fleet. After securing aid from Lando Calrissian and using masking transponders to bypass the planetary blockade, the crew joined the Phoenix Cell. The respite was brief, as Vader tracked the shuttle and launched a solo assault on the Rebel fleet in his TIE Advanced X-1. He single-handedly decimated Phoenix Squadron, forcing Commander Sato to abandon the Phoenix home. During the battle, Ahsoka Tano joined Jarrus in probing the Dark Lord's presence through the Force to learn who this dark presence was. The shock of sensing her former master, Anakin Skywalker, caused Ahsoka to lose consciousness. Vader, meanwhile, also sensed that his old apprentice had survived Order 66. Amidst the devastation, the Ghost and the surviving Rebel ships jumped to hyperspace, eventually regrouping at a new base on Garrel. Kanan, however, was still unsure of working with the military. His doubts about working within a larger group only grew when Ahsoka sent the Ghost crew to the Selos system to locate an old friend and secure data on abandoned places that could possibly serve as a new Rebel base. There, they encountered an old ATTE commanded by veteran clones Rex, Wolf, and Gregor. While Bridger sought their help, Jarrus remained distrustful, haunted by the memory of Order 66. Rex assured the Jedi that he and his comrades had removed their inhibitor chips and disobeyed the command. Despite this, Wolf secretly alerted the Empire to their presence, hoping to protect his brothers from Imperial wrath. Agent Kallus arrived with 3 AT-AT walkers. Rex provided Bridger with a data chip of coordinates for abandoned facilities, but the squad was soon cornered. Rex directed the AT-TE into a blinding sandstorm, relying on Kanan to guide their fire through the Force. After outmaneuvering the walkers, Ezra convinced Jarrus to return and rescue the clones. Following the victory, Rex joined the rebellion, while Wolf and Gregor remained on Selos. But Rex's integration sparked frequent arguments with Jarrus because the Jedi was still unsure about the clones' allegiance. They even clashed over Ezra's training, but the arguments were put on hold when Bridger snuck out to go on a secret mission. Upon the apprentice's return, Kanan soon learned of 2 new Inquisitors, the 7th sister and the 5th brother, sent to hunt them. Meanwhile, tensions persisted as Ezra skipped Jedi lessons to practice blaster marksmanship with Rex. While Rex and Kanan debated whether Bridger was a soldier or a Jedi, the boy expressed frustration with both roles. Shortly after, the crew secured fuel cells for the energy-deprived people of Ren. During this period, Jarrus also encountered the pirate Hondo Ohnaka, who had befriended Bridger during a separate adventure. Despite the constant bickering between Kanan and Rex, they needed to work together to rescue Ezra and Commander Sato, who had been captured by the Imperials in a separate skirmish. They succeeded in rescuing them, but Rex was captured in the process. Kanan, however, decided to rescue the former clone trooper from Admiral Brom Titus. With the mission a success, Kanan and Rex learned to respect one another despite their differences. Chapter 10. Obtaining and Helping Allies. Ezra Bridger's vision of his parents led Kanan Jarrus to investigate an Imperial prison breakout on Lothal. Identifying prisoner X-10 through the Force, the pair escaped an Inquisitor ambush on Garrel to return to Ezra's homeworld. Guided by a white Lothcat, they located an escapee, Ryder Azadi, the former governor of Lothal. Ryder revealed that Ezra's parents had died leading a prison revolt. Kanan comforted his grieving apprentice, teaching him that while their physical forms were gone, they remained part of the Force. The mission evolved when Princess Leia Organa arrived at the Lothal depot with 3 Hammerhead corvettes intended for the rebellion. To protect her political cover, Leia collaborated with the Jedi to stage a public theft of the ships. However, the Empire secured the cruisers with gravity locks and deployed walkers to guard the site. After Kanan rescued Ryder from execution, the Spectres launched a coordinated assault to reclaim the vessels. The crew succeeded in doing so by working together. Having witnessed the Jedi's conviction, Ryder Azadi committed to the rebel cause. The mission secured vital reinforcements for the Phoenix fleet and provided Ezra with the closure he needed to continue his training. After that mission, the Phoenix Cell realized they needed to secure a hyperspace route to Lothal to evade Imperial detection. Kanan Jarrus and Hera Syndulla proposed negotiating with the Mandalorian protectors of Conquered Dawn. But the mission turned violent when the Protectors' leader, Fen Rao, revealed his allegiance to the Empire. Hera was critically wounded in the ensuing dogfight, prompting a retaliatory strike. While Sabine Wren sought vengeance, Kanan insisted on one final diplomatic effort. Kanan and Chopper traveled to the Conquered Dawn system, discovering Sabine had stowed away. Upon infiltrating the Protector's moon base, Sabine planted explosives on the Fang fighters while Kanan confronted Rao. Kanan revealed his identity as a Jedi, reminding Rao that his Skull Squadron had saved Kanan and Depa Billaba during the Clone Wars. Despite this shared history, Rao refused to join the rebellion, viewing it as a lost cause. The standoff ended when Sabine was captured and invoked the Mandalorian Code to challenge Rao. During the duel, she detonated her explosives, destroying 7 of the 8 fighters. As Rao attempted to escape in the remaining craft, Kanan breached the cockpit and neutralized him. With Rao captured, the rebels forced him to grant safe passage through the system and keep his detention secret from the Empire. The mission succeeded, securing the route for the rebellion while Kanan and Sabine returned to update the recovering Hera. Soon after, Kanan and the crew accepted a mission from Hondo Ohnaka. They were to meet and escort 2 refugees, who happened to be the Lasats Chava the Wise and Gron, to the surprise of Zeb, who knew that the population of his people had been devastated. They learned that Gron and Chava were searching for Lirasan, the ancient original planet of the Lasats. Despite their initial hesitation and interference from the Empire, the Spectres successfully traveled to the legendary world, giving the Lasats a new place to settle in peace. After that, Kanan and the Phoenix Rebels raided a mining guild refinery to secure fuel for the Ghost. En route, they encountered a herd of Purrgil. While Hera viewed the creatures as a hazard, Kanan and Ezra discovered that matching the herd's path calmed them. The rebels subsequently defended the Purrgil from mining guild TIE fighters before arriving at the refinery. During the mission, Kanan led the assault to seize Clauson 36 canisters. Though the rebel initially planned to destroy the gas, Ezra convinced them to preserve the supplies the Purrgil needed to survive. As the mining guild security forces cornered the rebels and Ezra was knocked into the abyss, the apprentice established a force connection with the Purrgil king. The herd overwhelmed the guild's defenses, allowing the rebels to finish refueling and escape. Before departing, the Ghost destroyed the refinery. Reunited in space, the rebels followed the Purrgil as the creatures utilized the gas to jump into hyperspace. But while the rebels were surviving, they were losing pilots to the Empire. In response to this problem, Commander Jun Sato ordered the rebels to capture an Imperial carrier orbiting Ryloth. Hera Syndulla contacted her estranged father, Cham, to assist. While Kanan Jarrus was initially captivated by Cham's legendary status, Hera remained skeptical of his motives. Tensions emerged when Cham argued for destroying the ship to show strength, but Kanan supported Hera's plan to secure the vessel for the fleet. The rebels infiltrated them. However, once inside, Cham betrayed the Spectres, stunning them so he could proceed with the ship's destruction. Upon regaining consciousness, Kanan realized he had been misled by his admiration for the Twi'lek leader. While Zeb and Sabine neutralized Cham's operatives, Kanan and Hera fought their way to the command bridge. After Ezra used a Jedi mind trick to force an Imperial evacuation, Hera finally convinced Cham to aid the broader rebellion. The combined forces repelled Imperial reinforcements and repaired the hyperdrive, successfully jumping to hyperspace with the stolen carrier. The mission secured a vital asset for the rebels and facilitated a long-awaited reconciliation between Hera and her father. Chapter 11. Knighthood and Malachor. Even as Kanan Jarrus was instructing Ezra Bridger as a master, he was not a true Jedi, not in title at the very least. He was never knighted before Order 66 destroyed the Jedi Order. Despite that, he continued to operate as a true Jedi, bringing hope to the rebels and teaching Ezra everything he learned from his own master. Then, while searching for a base, Kanan and Ezra escaped the seventh sister and fifth brother by commandeering a Tibidi. After a deep space rendezvous with the Ghost, the Jedi returned to the Lothal Temple alongside Ahsoka Tano to seek Master Yoda's guidance and investigate the Sith Lord Darth Vader. Knowing they could never succeed without getting Vader and his Inquisitors off their backs. While meditating, Kanan entered a vision where a Temple Guard Sentinel warned that Ezra would inevitably fall to the dark side. The Sentinel demanded Bridger be eliminated, prompting Kanan to engage him and 2 other guards in a lightsaber duel. Kanan eventually refused to fight further, vowing to train Ezra despite the risks. Satisfied, the Sentinel knighted Kanan in the vision, allowing Jarrus to become a true Jedi Knight. Then the Sentinel shocked Kanan, revealing himself as the spirit of the former Grand Inquisitor before his fall to the dark side. Meanwhile, as the Inquisitors breached the temple, the Sentinel remained behind to delay them, allowing the Jedi to flee. Once safe aboard the Phantom, Ezra revealed that Yoda had directed him to find Malachor. Though Ezra assumed Malachor was an individual, Ahsoka clarified that it was a destination. Now a true Jedi Knight, Kanan helped the rebels establish Chopper Base on the planet Atollon. While on the base, he mentored his Padawan, emphasizing that victory in war meant survival rather than just killing Inquisitors. Despite Hera Syndulla's apprehension regarding their upcoming mission to Malachor with Ahsoka Tano, Kanan insisted the journey was vital for the rebellion's success. Before departing for Malachor, Kanan shared a final moment with Hera. Acknowledging her fear that they might not return, Kanan promised they would see each other again. With a final embrace, the Jedi prepared to leave Atollon for the Sith world. Little did Kanan know that this would be one of the final times he would see Hera with his own two eyes. Upon arriving on Malachor, Kanan, Ezra, and Ahsoka explored the ruins of a Sith temple. An ambush by a newly encountered Inquisitor, the Eighth Brother separated the group, sending Ezra into the depths where he encountered the former Sith Lord Darth Maul. Seeking to destroy the Empire, Maul convinced Ezra to retrieve a Sith holocron, all while trying to convince Bridger to tap into the dark side of the Force to gain more power. Despite Kanan's suspicion, he agreed to a temporary alliance with Maul to defeat the pursuing Inquisitors. As they ascended the temple, the alliance turned lethal. Maul and Ezra executed the Seventh Sister, while Maul personally dispatched the Fifth Brother. The Eighth Brother perished while attempting to flee. With their common enemies dead, Maul betrayed the Jedi, attacking Kanan with a strike across his eyes. The newly knighted Jedi understood that he had just been blinded by the former Sith Lord. Maul then revealed his true intent, to activate the temple as a superweapon to kill Darth Vader, knowing that the Sith Enforcer was going to be there to seek Ahsoka and the Sith holocron out. Despite his sudden blindness, Kanan donned an ancient Temple Guard helmet and relied on the Force to duel and defeat Maul, eventually throwing him off the pyramid's edge. The victory was short-lived as Vader arrived to seize the holocron. Ahsoka engaged her former master in a fierce duel, giving Kanan and Ezra the opportunity to remove the holocron and destabilize the station. As the temple began to self-destruct, Ahsoka stayed behind to hold off Vader, ensuring the others could escape. Kanan and Ezra fled aboard the Phantom just as the temple erupted. Returning to Atollon, the rebels were met with the somber reality of their mission. While they had survived, Kanan was permanently blinded. Ezra had tapped into the darkness, and Ahsoka was lost, leaving the survivors to process the heavy cost of their journey into the Sith shadows. Chapter 12. The Aftereffects of Malachor. The events on Malachor changed the Spectres in a drastic way. Kanan Jarrus was now a blind Jedi, trying his best to keep his rebel cell intact while instructing his Padawan. The problem with his apprentice, however, was that he had seen the dark. Ezra Bridger's time with Maul and his attachment to the Sith holocron also changed him. The apprentice also felt guilty about what had happened to both Kanan and Ahsoka. Jarrus, meanwhile, struggled to embrace his new reality. While Ezra and the rebels planned a mission to Reclam Station, Kanan sought solitude at the edge of Chopper Base. Hera approached him, expressing concern over Ezra's guilt following their ordeal on Malachor. Though Kanan harbored no resentment, he later discovered Ezra using the Sith holocron. The Master warned that acting out of anger leads to the dark side, while Ezra insisted he was using the artifact for good. Kanan confiscated the holocron, prompting a defiant Ezra to declare he no longer needed his master. During his personal struggles following that confrontation with Ezra, Kanan heard a mysterious voice that prompted him to venture into the planet's wilderness. There, he encountered the Bendu, an entity representing the center of the Force between the light and the dark. Kanan confessed his fear that Ezra was falling to the dark side, but the Bendu explained that an object is only as dangerous as its wielder's choices. Then, to help the Jedi with his current struggles, the Bendu sought to sharpen Kanan's connection to the Force. He destroyed Kanan's sensor beacon, forcing him to rely on his other senses. Surrounded by predatory Krykna, Kanan realized the creatures were feeding on his internal fear and anxiety. By making peace with his emotions and the wilderness, he restored his connection to the Force. He left the Sith holocron with the Bendu and departed to assist the rebels. Kanan arrived at Reclam Station in time to rescue Ezra from a fall over the planet Yarma. After the team successfully secured a fleet of Y-Wings, the Master and Apprentice reconciled. Ezra apologized for using the holocron, and Kanan, keeping the Bendu's existence a secret, assured Ezra that he would always be there to guide him. Their bond was restored, moving past the trauma of Malachor. Despite their reconciliation, Kanan and Ezra debated the morality of the Sith holocron recovered from Malachor as they were headed to a rebel rendezvous. Their discussion was cut short when they discovered a crippled Hammerhead corvette, its hull scarred by a red lightsaber. A surviving crew member revealed that the Ghost had been seized. Maul, having captured Hera, Chopper, Zeb, and Sabine, demanded both the Sith holocron and Kanan's Jedi holocron in exchange for their lives. Kanan, frustrated that Ezra had previously revealed the existence of his holocron to Maul, realized they had no choice but to comply. The Jedi traveled to Atollon to retrieve the artifact from the lair of the Bendu. The ancient Force-sensitive entity warned that the convergence of the two holocrons would grant absolute clarity, but could also invite chaos. To recover the hidden Jedi holocron, Kanan tasked Ezra with entering a Kragna-infested cave without his lightsaber, forcing the apprentice to rely on connection rather than aggression. When Ezra became overwhelmed by the creatures, Kanan intervened, guiding him through the Force. The trial allowed the master and apprentice to reconcile their recent tensions. After Ezra successfully levitated the holocron from the darkness, Bendu commended their restored balance, but warned that Maul would eventually force the holocrons open. Kanan and Ezra arrived at the Mandalorian station Vizsla Keep 09 to meet Maul's demands. Upon their arrival, Maul separated them, leading Ezra toward the command center while escorting Kanan toward an airlock. Seeking to eliminate his rival and to secure Ezra as his apprentice, Maul apologized for blinding Kanan before ejecting him into the vacuum of space. But the Jedi used the Force to leap back into the hangar, surviving the assassination attempt. He navigated the station to the Ghost cargo hold, where he destroyed Maul's droids just before they could execute the captured rebels. In the command center, Maul and Ezra had already initiated the ritual, merging the holocrons in a blinding pillar of light. Kanan reached the chamber and sensed Ezra's consciousness within the convergence. He urged his apprentice to break the connection, warning of the danger of the forbidden knowledge. Bridger obeyed, causing the holocrons to sever in a violent explosion. But Maul seized the opportunity to escape the station, leaving the Jedi behind as the holocrons had already revealed to him what he wanted to know, that his old rival Obi-Wan Kenobi was alive. As Ezra regained consciousness, Kanan reassured him that they would face the consequences and the secrets of the holocrons together. Chapter 13. New Enemies and Allies. Not too long after the incident with Maul, Kanan Jarrus and the Spectres returned to Ryloth to assist Cham Syndulla's resistance against a new enemy that had occupied the planet. But there was something different about this foe. Cham had been able to best the Empire most of the time. However, their newest enemy seemed to know how to predict the Freedom Fighters' every movement. This new threat demanded the intervention of the Spectres. While Hera, Ezra, and Chopper infiltrated the occupied Syndulla estate to recover a family Kalikori, Kanan and Cham led a diversionary assault on Imperial forces. The mission took a dire turn when Hera and Ezra were captured by Captain Slavin, who demanded Cham surrender himself in exchange for their release. At dawn, the rebels arrived at the Syndulla residence for the prisoner swap. Before the exchange could be finalized, Hera signaled Chopper to detonate hidden explosives, destroying her ancestral home and distracting the Imperials. During the chaotic escape, Kanan used his lightsaber to deflect a rocket back at an ATDP walker, neutralizing the pursuit. Once safe in the wilderness, Hera shared a private moment with Kanan and Cham, concluding that while the physical Kalikori was lost, her family and her crew were the legacy that truly mattered. But while Hera had made peace with her family's legacy, she could not shake the fact that they were facing a completely new threat far bigger than what they had encountered before. The enemy that had bested Cham was Grand Admiral Thrawn, a Chiss tactician who mastered the art of reading his enemies to predict their movement. This new foe was a problem the Spectres realized they had to deal with from now on, as it was clear Thrawn had his crimson-red eyes on their movements. Soon after the mission on Ryloth, Phoenix Squadron deployed Kanan Jarrus, Ezra Bridger, and Chopper to Lothal to investigate a new Imperial weapon. In Capital City, they rendezvoused with Ryder Azadi, whose cell had been sabotaging vehicles produced at the Imperial Armory Complex. Capitalizing on a distraction staged by Chopper, Kanan and Ezra disguised themselves as Imperial personnel to infiltrate the factory. While Chopper sliced into the mainframe to steal secret plans, the Jedi encountered Agent Kallus. Although they initially attacked the ISB agent, Kallus revealed himself as the new Fulcrum, who had been helping them for a while already. He proved it by mentioning the secret code phrase only Fulcrum would know. Despite Ezra's distrust, Kanan accepted Callus's assistance in accessing a secure communication station to contact Ryder. The rebels escaped the facility, all while protecting Callus's secret identity. Then, back at Ryder's base, the rebels analyzed the stolen data and discovered Thrawn was developing a high-performance starfighter, the TIE Defender. Kanan and Hera Syndulla realized the project threatened the survival of the rebellion's pilots. Though the Jedi reported Callus's loyalty, Hera urged the team to remain cautious while working with their new Imperial mole. Following the acquisition of intelligence regarding the Lothal Imperial factory, Hera organized a strike involving the Spectres and Phoenix Squadron. During the briefing, Ezra's stability faltered as he experienced vivid hallucinations of Maul, eventually collapsing. Kanan's concern deepened when Ezra nearly executed a rebel trooper he mistook for the former Sith. Seeking a solution, Kanan took Ezra to commune with the Bendu, who identified the incomplete holocron vision as the source of the disturbance. Their meditation was interrupted by Maul, who had tracked them to the site. To prevent Maul from revealing the location of the rebel base, Kanan reluctantly permitted Ezra to travel with him to Dathomir to finish the ritual. Kanan and Sabine Wren pursued them to the Night Sister lair, discovering that Ezra and Maul had successfully merged their minds. However, the ritual summoned the vengeful spirits of the Night Sisters, who possessed Kanan and Sabine to claim a debt of flesh. The possessed pair attacked, forcing Maul to flee and Ezra to retreat. Unwilling to leave his comrades, Ezra returned to the cave alone. He managed to exorcise Sabine and engaged the possessed Kanan in a duel atop an altar. By offering himself and then destroying the altar with a lightsaber and the darksaber, Ezra banished the spirits and saved his master. In the aftermath, Ezra revealed the final piece of the vision. The key to destroying the Sith was Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, who resided on a desert planet with twin suns. Aware that Maul possessed the same knowledge, Kanan and his allies committed to finding the lost Jedi Master before their enemy could strike. Later, Senator Bail Organa requested the Spectres and Captain Rex to travel to Geonosis to locate the radical rebel Saw Gerrera, who was investigating the mysterious disappearance of the Geonosian species. Exploring an underground labyrinth, the group encountered and captured a lone Geonosian, nicknamed Click-Clack, who likely held secrets regarding Imperial construction on the planet. Tension rose between the Jedi and the extremist Saw over the treatment of Click-Clack, who was found protecting the last remaining Geonosian queen egg. As an Imperial cruiser arrived to intercept them, Saw reneged on an agreement to relocate the alien, threatening to destroy the egg to force Click-Clack to cooperate. The conflict was interrupted by an Imperial jump trooper assault, forcing the rebels to descend into the planet's lower reaches. There, they discovered abandoned Imperial poison canisters, confirming the Empire had committed genocide against the Geonosian population. Faced with the evidence of the massacre, Saw had a change of heart and allowed Click-Clack and the egg to remain hidden in the depths. The rebels reported the genocide to Senator Organa and Commander Sato. Though they had failed to identify the Empire's secret project, Kanan cautioned Ezra that while they shared common enemies with men like Saw, they did not always share the same values. Chapter 14. Helping Sabine. Following the mission to Dathomir, Sabine Wren surrendered the darksaber into the custody of Kanan Jarrus. Recognizing the weapon's historical weight and its significance to the Mandalorian people, Kanan sought a consultation with Fenn Rau, the former leader of the Protectors. Rau identified the blade and detailed its lineage to Kanan, expressing his belief that the darksaber was the key to unifying the Mandalorian clans. He argued that if Sabine could master the blade, she could bring her people into the fold of the rebellion. The Jedi initially resisted this notion, noting that Sabine had no desire to lead or return to her home world. Despite this, Kanan and Rau agreed that the strategic necessity of the rebellion outweighed her personal reluctance, and they resolved to convince her to take up the mantle. Kanan and Hera Syndulla eventually convened a meeting with Sabine and other Spectres to discuss the blade's future. Jarrus proposed that Sabine's discovery of the darksaber was a matter of destiny rather than coincidence. He acknowledged that while she was not a Jedi, she possessed the capacity to become proficient with the weapon. Sabine remained deeply hesitant, understanding that the wielder of the darksaber was expected to lead Mandalore. She expressed a belief that her estranged and volatile relationship with her family made her an unsuitable candidate for such a role. Her refusal persisted until Hera explained that the rebellion's plan to liberate Lothal required the military strength of the Mandalorians. Driven by this necessity, Sabine reluctantly agreed to undergo training under the guidance of Kanan and Ezra. The training began with immediate tension. When Ezra attempted to offer advice by telling Sabine, "Don't try, just learn," she lashed out at him with physical aggression. Kanan intervened, cautioning her to maintain emotional restraint. To ensure she could focus without the distractions of Chopper Base, Kanan and Ezra relocated Sabine to the wilderness for an intensive training camp. Kanan initially restricted Sabine to using wooden training sabers fashioned by himself and Zeb. He viewed the Darksaber as too dangerous for her current skill level and intended to test her fundamental combat abilities first. The blind Jedi easily parried her strikes and knocked her to the ground, demonstrating her lack of technical proficiency. Kanan then assigned Ezra to teach her basic lightsaber strokes using the wooden sticks. After 2 days of minimal progress, Kanan spoke with Hera via hologram. Syndulla expressed her disapproval of Kanan's decision to withhold the actual Darksaber, but Kanan defended his methods, arguing that Sabine had not yet opened her mind to the Force or the discipline required for the blade. The dynamic shifted when Fen Rao arrived at the camp with supplies and a set of Mandalorian vambraces for Sabine. Equipped with these tools, Sabine successfully utilized gadgets to gain the upper hand in a sparring match against Ezra. Kanan was visibly annoyed by her reliance on technology, questioning if she viewed the training as a game. Sabine countered that she was simply outsmarting her opponent. She challenged Kanan to take a shot and ensnared him with a grappling line. Kanan quickly freed himself using his lightsaber and reminded her that the Jedi had historically defeated Mandalore in war. He lectured her that while such gadgets might offer temporary advantages, only rigorous training and discipline would ensure her long-term survival. Frustrated, Sabine walked away to clear her head. That evening, Hera confronted Kanan again, criticizing his reluctance to let Sabine wield the Darksaber. She explained that Ren's struggles were rooted in the trauma of being rejected by her family. Following this conversation, Kanan apologized to Sabine for holding her back, and Sabine apologized for her earlier attitude. Kanan finally allowed her to ignite the Darksaber, and they began a formal duel. During the sparring session, Kanan pushed Sabine to her emotional limits, goading her about her past and her abandonment of her family. As they parried, the intensity of the duel helped Sabine strengthen her connection to the blade. Under the pressure of Kanan's interrogation, Sabine finally confessed the truth. She had spoken out against the Empire after they used the weapons she helped build to enslave Mandalore. In response, her family had chosen the Empire over her, casting her out to protect their own status. Overcome by this revelation and her own grief, Sabine managed to disarm Kanan and gain the upper hand. She immediately ended the fight and collapsed, weeping. Kanan comforted her, explaining that the Empire maintained control through fear and that her family was trapped in a prison of their own making. He promised to help her free them. Ezra and Fen Rao joined them, pledging their support to Sabine's cause and her mission to win over the Mandalorian people for the rebellion. Chapter 15. Helping establish the Rebel Alliance. Soon after Ezra Bridger returned from his renegade mission to prevent Maul from killing Obi-Wan Kenobi, the rebels intensified their preparations on their mission to retake Lothal from the Empire. During the preparations, Kanan Jarrus doubted his skills as a teacher, but Ezra Bridger reassured him that he had taught him how to live. However, Grand Admiral Thrawn had learned of the rebels' plans and decided to take preemptive measures by deducing where their base was. As Thrawn's 7th Fleet blockaded Atollon, Hera Syndulla assigned the Jedi to seek reinforcements. However, Kanan felt compelled to seek the Bendu's aid instead. He pleaded for the ancient entity to intervene, but the Bendu remained neutral, arguing that all things were destined to die. When Kanan accused him of cowardice, the creature vanished in a fury, declaring it might be the Force's will for the Jedi to perish. Kanan returned to Chopper Base during a heavy orbital bombardment. After his speeder was destroyed, he regrouped with Rex and Zeb. As Thrawn's forces surrounded the rebels, the Grand Admiral demanded their surrender. Kanan warned Thrawn to fear the coming storm, just as Bendu manifested as a massive lightning strike. Amidst the chaos, Kanan and the survivors fled aboard the Ghost. In orbit, the rebels synchronized with Ezra and Mandalorian reinforcements who destroyed an Imperial interdictor cruiser. After rescuing Agent Kallus, the fleet escaped into hyperspace toward Yavin 4. During the journey, Kanan welcomed Kallus to the rebellion and comforted Ezra. Despite the devastating loss of their base, Kanan reassured his apprentice that they remained alive to continue the fight for a free galaxy. Kanan, Ezra, and Chopper soon after traveled to Mandalore to help Sabine and Clan Wren rescue Alric Wren from Imperial custody. Alongside Fen Rao and Bo-Katan Kryze, Kanan repelled jump troopers and intercepted the convoy carrying the prisoner. When the Empire deployed the Duchess, a superweapon Sabine had designed, Kanan helped rescue her family before infiltrating Governor Tiber Saxon's Star Destroyer. While Chopper erased the Imperial database, Kanan held off stormtroopers, allowing Sabine and Ezra to destroy the weapon. They escaped just as the ship exploded. Not too long after the events of Mandalore, the rebels established a more permanent base on Yavin 4, where all their allies, including the other rebel cells, regrouped. Chapter 16. The Final Return to Lothal. Haunted by visions of Ryder Azadi, Ezra Bridger sought a return to Lothal. At the Great Temple on Yavin 4, Mon Mothma confirmed Azadi's intel regarding a new TIE Defender prototype. Disguised as civilians, the Spectres infiltrated the occupied planet aboard Vizago's ship. During a brief respite, Kanan shared a tender moment with Hera, expressing a wish to see her again before the mission's urgency intervened. After an Imperial ambush, the group was forced into the sewers by Jai Kell, a young Lothal native Ezra met when he went undercover in the Imperial Academy. Pursued by death troopers and probe droids, Kanan navigated the tunnels and destroyed an Imperial probe to cover their tracks. As they made their way out of the tunnels, the Spectres were extracted by Azadi and Marita Sumar in a U-Wing, successfully returning to the heart of the Lothal resistance. While Ezra and Sabine infiltrated an Imperial facility to steal the TIE Defender Elite, Kanan remained with Hera, realizing that full-scale production of the advanced fighter was imminent. Following a successful rescue, Ezra reported an encounter with a mythical Lothwolf, leading Kanan to remark that their paths were finally converging. Then, as they were waiting for a recovered hyperdrive, Kanan and Hera discussed their destiny with Ezra and their potential future after the war. But before Hera departed to deliver the TIE Defender's flight data, the two shared a passionate kiss. They then fled to a network of caves, where they were guided by a pack of Lothwolves. One wolf addressed Kanan by his birth name, Dume, revealing a deep connection to the Force. Sensing that the Empire was inflicting something terrible upon Lothal, Kanan and Ezra prepared for the unknown journey the Force had set before them. After establishing a hidden base, Kanan and the Spectres hijacked Crawler 41324, a mining guild vessel harvesting Lothal's surface. The rebels seized the bridge and subdued the Trandoshan captain, Seevor, though he managed to broadcast a distress signal. Investigating the lower decks, Kanan discovered several indentured workers, including the smuggler Vizago. During a skirmish with the foreman Proch, Kanan was disarmed by an electro-whip before Zeb intervened, leading to Proch's fatal fall. When an Imperial patrol arrived to investigate, Kanan and his trainees hid while Zeb and Vizago feigned control of the vessel. Though the ruse succeeded, Seevor escaped into the vents to sabotage the reactors. Ezra eventually cornered and killed the captain, securing the crawler. Grateful for their liberation, Vizago and the former prisoners pledged their support to the rebellion. With communication restored, the Spectres contacted Hera Syndulla, who revealed that Rebel Command had authorized an assault on Lothal's Imperial factories. Kanan and his group committed to serving as the ground support team for the liberation effort. Chapter 17. A Jedi's Sacrifice. As part of their assault on the Imperial factories on Lothal, Kanan Jarrus and the Spectres sabotaged anti-air turbo lasers to support Hera Syndulla's incoming X-Wing squadron. However, Grand Admiral Thrawn's 7th Fleet arrived in time to assist the forces on Lothal. The fleet decimated the rebel force, causing survivors to crash land in Capital City. While Thrawn expressed discontent at being distracted by the rebels, his forces successfully captured Hera. During the retreat, Kanan halted his speeder bike, sensing a desperate need to rescue her. Although Sabine was hesitant, Ezra convinced her to let Jarrus proceed alone. On his way to the city, Kanan was intercepted by a mysterious Lothwolf. The creature vanished and reappeared alongside two others, speaking Kanan's birth name, Dume. Removing his visor, Kanan acknowledged the wolf's guidance, accepting the clarity of his impending path. Deep within the outskirts, Kanan encountered survivors Chopper and Mart Matin, who confirmed Hera's capture. After securing their evacuation, Kanan prepared for a solo rescue mission into the Imperial stronghold. He realized his time for diversions had passed, fully committing to the destiny required to save the woman he loved and the future of Lothal. However, he was not alone in his quest to rescue Hera. Ezra and Sabine, the two teenagers whom he taught the ways of the Jedi, were willing to assist their mentor in this personal mission. The trio infiltrated the Imperial complex at night using handmade Lothbat gliders. Prior to the mission, Kanan cut his hair, shaved his beard, and discarded his mask, sporting a new look that revealed his true self in what he realized could be the final time Hera would see him at his best. During the infiltration, Kanan recovered Hera's stolen Kalikori from Thrawn's office before ascending the tower where Governor Pryce was torturing Hera for information on the rebel fleet, using truth serum to try to pry information out of her. After neutralizing the guards, Kanan freed Hera, and the two escaped the rooftop via glider. Though Imperial pilots pursued them, Ezra and Sabine provided cover fire, allowing Kanan and Hera to land safely atop a fuel tower. In a quiet moment before their extraction, Hera confessed her love for Kanan, and the two shared a kiss. "Kanan, I know what to say now. I love you." Must be the truth serum talking. No, it's me. All me. Hera to Kanan. The respite ended when Pryce ordered an Imperial walker to fire upon the tower, triggering a massive explosion. Kanan rushed toward the approaching inferno, using the Force to hold back the wall of fire, allowing the other rebels enough time to escape. As Hera attempted to reach him, Kanan used his remaining strength to force push her onto the rescue ship and propel the vessel out of the blast radius. With one hand, he was pushing the inferno back. Meanwhile, the other prevented any rescue attempt on the part of his allies. This was Kanan at his most powerful, and it was all because of his love and attachment to his family. In his final seconds, the Force momentarily restored Kanan's eyes, allowing him to look upon Hera one last time. Aware of his impending doom, he was at peace, realizing that this was what the Force intended for him all along. He survived Order 66 and much of the Imperial era to save the people he loved. Soon after, he was consumed by the flames and became one with the Force. Kanan's sacrifice ensured the crew's survival and crippled the TIE Defender project by destroying the Imperial fuel supply. More importantly, Ezra, Hera, and the rest of the Spectres used his memory as inspiration to continue the fight against the Empire. During the pivotal battle to liberate Lothal, Bridger followed in his master's footsteps. Understanding the meaning of sacrifice, he banished himself and Thrawn's flagship away from the known galaxy, giving the rebels their first pivotal victory over their tormentors. Not too long after Kanan's sacrifice, Hera added a fragment of his Jedi holocron to the Syndulla Kalikori, honoring and recognizing him as a member of the family. Following the eventual liberation of Lothal, Hera gave birth to their son, Jacen Syndulla, who inherited his father's human appearance. And to commemorate their journey, Sabine painted a mural of the Spectres flanked by Lothwolves, immortalizing the crew as a family. While most people celebrated Luke Skywalker and his crew as the biggest heroes of the rebellion after successfully defeating the Empire, Kanan Jarrus was the unsung hero, whose small but impactful actions sparked more rebellions and inspired many to act against tyranny. Oh, and again, for a limited time, every Stickman saber purchase comes with 2 additional combat sabers, so you're more than ready for your own duels. If that sounds like something you'd want to look into, the link's in the description.